So what's up, guys? This is my punishment episode 4. Episode 4, sorry. Part 4 of 5. Book my first year. If I was in WWE / WWF, I can choose whatever era. So let me take you back a couple of years. Well, almost 2 decades now. Jesus Christ, I'm old. So everyone remembers a thing called WCW. That's where I'm going to start. In WCW, I was known as, a up-and-comer, if you will. I was a 21-year-old prospect in 2001. 2000, we'll say 2000, okay? 2000, I was an up-and-coming prospect. Maybe 19, you know what? No, let's bring it back even more. 98, I was a prospect to WCW. I was, at the time, WCW was more into bigger guys, so I really wasn't that big. I was 5'8", let's say about 200 pounds. So the Cruiserweight division was already stacked. At the time, I was like, I didn't want to be a part of the Cruiserweight division. I wanted to do something bigger. And I guess they valued my age. So long story short, I ended up being a errand boy for the NWO. And that was my gimmick. Errand boy for NWO. I did anything they wanted me to do. Sometimes interfere in a match, take a few bumps for them while they pick up victories, and that lasted until WCW's fall. When the Wolfpack became something, I was still a part of it. I didn't have a major role because WCW didn't really care for small guys. Fast forward to WWF era. Obviously, WWF buys out WCW, and I am here. I get my very first opportunity on July 2nd, 2001. I faced Booker T in the main event, just because I guess WWE just wanted to see what I had to offer. Well, WWF wanted to see what I had to offer, now known as WWE. So I fought against Booker T, in which it was about a 3-minute fight. I took so many bumps. I lost. I went to the back, and where I saw Stone Cold and Kurt Angle, and they were just beating the shit out of Booker T. So I joined in on the fun. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, what way to earn these guys' trust and respect by fighting with them, because at the time, WWE hated WCW. So I joined forces with them. Kurt and Stone Cold both look at each other as they look at me. They smile, I get stunned, and Kurt Angle does an angle slam to me onto the exit door. So I'm gone. There's a pay-per-view called Invasion that happens. It's July 22nd, 2001 in Cleveland, Ohio. Just to give you some perspective of what this match had. It had referees fighting each other. So Earl Hebner versus Nick Patrick, WCW versus WWE. Billy Kidman versus X-Pac. Raven versus William Regal. This whole invasion was WCW versus WWF / WWE. The main event featured Team WCW / ECW Booker T and DDP, and Rhino and the Dudley Boys versus Team WWF of Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, The Undertaker, and Kane. Don't get confused, this wasn't the Survivor Series match where winner takes all. This was just a inaugural brawl, if you will. So at the time, I was kicked out of that time. WWF wasn't too sure about me because, once again, they were about the bigger guys, but they did have some room for the smaller dudes because 5'8", all that jazz. Like Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho were becoming huge stars for them, and they weren't known as these like macho man type guys. No pun intended. But one of the matches featured, like I was saying, one of the matches featured the inaugural brawl, in which Team WCW ECW will end up winning that brawl. For the fact of the reason that it was an elimination style. I'm just gonna, let's say it was an elimination style, okay? And the final two was the one guy in the ring, because everyone, you know what happens to tag team matches, everyone gets involved and everyone gets thrown out and all that jazz. Kurt Angle and it's Booker T, and they're beating on each other. Kurt Angle does an Olympic slam. The referee takes a bump. There's another referee in there, and that referee takes a bump. Kurt Angle does an Olympic slam, has him for the cover, and there's no one out there. A referee shows up, runs in, goes to count 1, 2, and stops this count. Kurt Angle looks up. The fans don't really know this person, but it ends up being myself as a referee, and the fans are not supposed to know this right now. It's just that the referee came in a WWF shirt, takes off his WWF referee shirt, and has a WCW shirt. Booker T from behind low blows him, and he does his finisher move, which I can't, the scissors kick, but I knew he called it something else. I don't know why I can't think. It's probably because it's like past midnight right now. Does it, I count 1, 2, 3 really quick. I run off of Booker T as Stone Cold goes in. Looks like Kurt Angle looks right at me, and he stares at me because he knows exactly who I am. Obviously, Stone Cold's looking right at me as I'm running away with Booker T. Undertaker and Kane are outside the ring, both looking at me as well. That's just setting up a few things, if you will. So, as that ends, and we lead on to the next pay-per-view called SummerSlam, just before the pay-per-view, Kurt Angle and Austin were in a pretty much big brawl with each other because it's like, you lost it for us, and it's like, that guy, all that crap ruined everything. And so Vince comes up with the idea, because Booker T is taking on The Rock, and Steve Austin is taking on Kurt Angle. Steve Austin takes on Kurt Angle for the WWF World title, and Booker T is taking on The Rock for the WCW World title at SummerSlam. That's when The Rock told Booker T, "Who in the hell are you?" So Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. Vince comes out and has this great idea, because we all know how much of a genius he is. He goes, "I have an idea. Why not have a special referee for this match?" And he makes it me. Now, just for reference, my name at this time, I always thought that if I ever was a wrestler, I would use my middle name first and my first name last. Because Nelson Cabral doesn't sound really nice, but I like the name of Brian Nelson. Guess that has a lot to do with Daniel Bryan, because it just rolls off. And it's good for crowd chants, like Brian Nelson. Not saying I would get crowd chants, because I'm just a freaking referee. So the crowd is like, who the hell is this guy? Some people know me, some people don't. So they put a graphic up about what happened to me. And it turns out that's the same dude that got Angle slammed out of there, who's now an official referee for WCW. So I went to Vince's office, and I'm like, you cannot do this to me. Like, I was just trying to make a statement, because you're all about making statements. You got to take everything, grab it by the grapefruits and all that jazz. And he's like, well, let's see how you do then. You're in this turf now. You're not going to be anywhere near the WCW World title. We're going to see how you call a WWF World title. So as such, I get in the ring. Steve Austin shows up. Kurt Angle shows up. The bell rings. They go at it with each other. Steve Austin, does his usual, stomps a mud hole, all that stuff. About 15 minutes in the match, we see the first finisher happen. Kurt Angle does the Olympic slam on Steve Austin. Goes for the pin. I go 1, 2. Steve Austin kicks out. Kurt Angle gets up, puts up a 3 count, and says, "What was that? What the hell are you doing here?" Like, it's a 3. And I was like, it's a 2. I'm being very fair. 1, 2. Just a 2. Steve Austin behind Kurt Angle turns around. Stunner. Same thing. 1, 2. Just a 2. Starts looking at me. Starts yelling at me. Just saying a bunch of shit that I even can't understand. He's just spewing shit at me. And I'm like, I'm the ref. I will disqualify you. Just like that. Because you know what? I'm tired of this crap. Because I almost lost my job because of these 2 idiots. And I'm going to do my damn job calling this match down the middle. So Kurt and Steve begin to go at it. Kurt takes a steel chair. Goes over it with Steve Austin. Steve Austin ducks, hits me over the head with the steel chair. Steve Austin, stunner onto Kurt. Goes for the cover. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can go up to 10. I'm just knocked out. So Steve Austin lifts me up, and he's like, what the hell? Once again, He's like, get the hell up. Like, the hell's the matter with you? And so I have blood in my eyes because the steel shot was a direct headshot. So I don't know who's doing this. Me thinking it's Kurt Angle, I low blow Steve Austin. I just kick him right in the nuts. And then Kurt goes in for the cover. I can see a little bit of what's going on. I see that there's a cover. Kurt does a schoolboy on him. I go in 1, 2, 3. Kurt Angle is the champion for right now. So as Kurt Angle's the champion, he says, yeah, you know, he did it, all that stuff. Like, as his music is playing, he looks right at me and gives me an angle slam just for the hell of it, and he leaves. Stone Cold gets up and realizes what's happening and looks at me, and he just pulverizes my ass. He completely annihilates me. Gone completely crazy, apeshit. So after SummerSlam happened, I'm not going to talk about all the other rivalries happening because Edge versus Christian was happening at the time. You know, RVD and Jericho were having at it at the hardcore title. I'm not going to talk about that because that has nothing to do with them right now. So the next pay-per-view ends up being Unforgiven 2001. Kurt Angle versus Steve Austin in a rematch. So Kurt versus Steve, they go at it. Earlier in the day, RVD retained his title. RVD plays a critical role in this. So Kurt Angle and Steve Austin go at it. Steve Austin hits a stunner, goes for the cover. 1, 2. Kurt Angle kicks out. Kurt Angle and Steve go at it. Kurt Angle hits the angle slam. Ref bump. In shows up RVD. RVD goes in and just flattens Steve Austin. No, I'm sorry. RVD goes in and just flattens out Kurt Angle. Steve Austin picks up Kurt Angle. Stunner. 1, 2, 3. So now everyone's like, what the hell was that? Why did RVD help out Steve Austin? So, on to No Mercy 2001. This is the next pay-per-view. Don't worry, I'm going to get into this again. It's now a triple threat match. Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and RVD for the WWF World Title. Now, all of them are going at it. Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and RVD, they're all going at it. And it shows that Steve Austin was talking to WCW officials and management at the time. So everyone's like a little weirded out by what Steve Austin has in mind. But anyways, because WCW is still kind of a threat. Kurt Angle and RVD and Steve Austin all go at it in a triple threat. They beat the shit out of each other. Kurt Angle does an angle slam on Steve Austin. RVD goes in for a frog splash, goes for the cover. Kurt Angle pushes RVD off. Now RVD and Kurt Angle are going at it. Steve Austin, Kurt Angle eliminates RVD by just throwing him off the top rope after giving him a couple of ankle locks. So RVD's ankle is pretty busted. Throws him off the top rope. Kurt Angle turns around. A stunner happens, but Kurt Angle grabs Steve Austin's ankle and puts it into an ankle lock. And Steve Austin is about to tap out. The ref is nowhere to be found because the ref right now is checking on RVD. Someone comes in with the WWF World Title, and this is me. And I hit Kurt Angle right off the head. Now you're thinking, the hell? And I'm like, yeah. Trust me on this one. So I go in and I hit Kurt Angle off top of his head with the title. Stone Cold goes in for the cover. 1, 2, 3. And Stone Cold retains his... Did he retain? Well, whatever. He got the WWF title. So the next pay-per-view, it actually ends up happening in England. The very next one. This is on November 3rd, 2001. This is a special for England. It's called Rebellion. And just 2 weeks from that is already Survivor Series. But The Rock is having problems now. He's like, I don't know about Austin, who he's playing for, which side he's going for. But right now, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna take the WWF title. That way, in worst case scenario, I have it. Steve Austin and The Rock go at it, and you know it's an instant classic because Steve Austin and The Rock have had many, many, many great moments. This one's no different. About 4 stunners, 4 rock bottoms, and a people's elbow in this match. Now, before this, everyone knows about me and what happened. So I'm officially on Steve Austin's corner. Like, I'm his little errand boy now. So Steve Austin and The Rock go at it. Steve Austin ends up stunning The Rock. The Rock gets up, does a rock. After a while, The Rock gets up, does a rock bottom, goes for a people's elbow. As he's going to the ropes, I trip The Rock. He looks at me and he gives me those Samoan eyes like he's about to kick my ass. He runs around, runs after me. I go in the ring, run past Stone Cold, run outside to the other side of the ring. The Rock goes through the ring, meets Stone Cold, stunner, 1, 2, 3. So Stone Cold, he thanks me, has a beer with me, and you know what happens next? He stunners me. At this point, everyone thinks I'm just a joke. He's just like, who is this guy anyways? Like, he's just some WCW reject who's in WWF, who the company likes because he's young for some stupid reason. Because at this time in 2001, I'm like, what? Because I said I was like, 23, 21 in 98. So 99, 2001, I'd be like, what? Like 24, let's say? Next pay-per-view is Survivor Series. Now, this is the pay-per-view where Stone Cold and Kurt Angle both defected to Team Alliance. Because Kurt was like, you know what? I'm done with WWF. WWF can suck it. So Steve, Kurt, Booker T, RVD, and Shane McMahon took on The Rock, Chris Jericho, Undertaker, Kane, and Big Show. Everyone was worried about Chris Jericho as well, because Chris Jericho is a WCW guy. People keep forgetting that Big Show is a WCW guy too, but more people were worried about Chris Jericho. So the finals is the same way. The Rock and Jericho took on Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. Those were like the final four, I believe, because Undertaker just got eliminated. So Steve Austin eliminates Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho runs to the back. The Rock bottoms Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle gets sent to the back. So it's The Rock and Steve Austin left. Winner take all. The Rock representing WWF. Steve Austin representing Team Alliance. So as Kurt Angle goes back, Kurt Angle walks back in, hits Stone Cold over the head with the title. As Kurt Angle leaves, right, The Rock's in the middle of the ring, Steve Austin in the middle of the ring, I roll from underneath the ring apron. Because as Kurt Angle hits Steve Austin over the head, he rolls off and he goes, now. He says the word now. So I go in and I do the dirty work. After Kurt Angle did all that, I move The Rock on top of Steve Austin. I pick up the ref and I throw him in. Because at the time, Kurt Angle was getting chased down by Undertaker and Kane. At the time, Kurt Angle was getting chased down by Booker T and RVD because he just did that to Team Alliance. So as he was running away, saying now, because he knew that there were going to be repercussions for what he did. No one noticed me. So I put in the ref and I moved The Rock on top of Steve Austin, 1, 2, 3. Just to make sure that I have a spot in WWF, I had to do what I had to do. And I had to abolish Team Alliance. Because if Team Alliance were to lose, I wasn't going to be anywhere near this programming anymore. So if I helped Team WWF win, they're like, you know what, maybe there is something for him. So Steve Austin is absolutely pissed, like you can't even imagine. Chris Jericho, this is vengeance. Obviously this is one where Chris Jericho said he beat The Rock and Steve Austin on the same night. Well, let's erase some of that, shall we? So, for the WWF Heavyweight title, Steve Austin took on Kurt Angle versus Brian Nelson. So, Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and Brian Nelson. So, the match starts, Steve Austin, Kurt Angle. I don't need to tell you the history of this. I've already told you the history between us three. It goes all the way back since day one when I got thrown out. Kurt Angle and Steve go at it. I'm actually showing off some moves. There's a lot of stuff I'm doing that people are actually pretty cool on. They're like, okay, I see what he has. So my finisher ends up being something that I kind of liked. It's pretty much what Cody Rhodes does. It's a crossroads. That's my finisher. Simple, easy, kind of devastating. So I would just call it I'll call it limbo. How's that? I'll just call it limbo because after I do my finisher, it just puts you into limbo. So I hit limbo on Kurt Angle. Go for the cover, 1, 2, Kurt Angle kicks out. Hit limbo on Steve Austin, go for the cover, 1, 2, Steve Austin kicks out. So I've actually been holding my own. But all of us are busted wide open. This is a triple threat. There is no disqualification in triple threats. Never. Because it just doesn't work. So Steve Austin takes the chair, starts bashing it over my head, starts hitting Kurt Angle. Steve Austin takes a bump afterwards because he keeps attacking me. That Kurt Angle ends up recovering and does a German suplex to him. I go in for a quick schoolboy on Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle kicks out. Kurt Angle hits me with an Angle slam. Steve Austin stunners Angle. Angle goes out of the ring. He sees me down. He goes in for a cover. 1, 2, 3. I lost. Steve Austin wins the title. The next match ends up being Chris Jericho versus The Rock. It happens the same way. Chris Jericho wins. Next match is Chris Jericho versus Steve Austin. So Jericho and Steve Austin going at it. And you know when Vince McMahon shows up and he helps Jericho win? It's not what happens. I show up and I help Chris Jericho win because I'm pissed off about what happened to me. Like, Steve Austin got the better of me again. I can't beat this guy. So I help Chris Jericho win. So he unified the titles. He beat Steve Austin and The Rock at the same night, and I helped him do it. I'm like, screw you. I'm done with this shit. I'm done with you, Steve. Steve's become like my enemy number one. It's him then Kurt, because I can't stand those two right now. So as it goes on, we go into January, and it's Royal Rumble season. The Rock has been making claims that, he wants it, he wants to fight, and all that stuff. And we find out that Vince McMahon has a partner in Ric Flair. So that match happens, Vince versus Flair at the Royal Rumble. So Jericho and The Rock, this is the big one. Because this is also around the era where Triple H returned to the Rumble. So Jericho and The Rock take on. They go at it. I'm at ringside, of course, with Jericho. They go at it. The Rock ends up getting screwed over because I do a quick pin on him. Not quick pin, I'm sorry. I disrupt his people's elbow one time again, but this time he catches me running around. And he rock bottoms me, throws my head into the turnbuckle. I gashed open. Like, I'm just bleeding mess. He goes inside, and Jericho gets him in a bulldog, does a lion salt, walls of Jericho. The Rock ends up tapping out. Jericho beats The Rock. So, Jericho beat The Rock, and the Royal Rumble happens. Vince is fed up. He's absolutely fed up. He's like, you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough of this crap. He's like, you're going to go in the Royal Rumble, and you know what? Your spot is number one. And I'm like, I just got stitches. And he's like, you're damn right you did, and you're going to be number one. All right, that's fine. So I go in at number one. I'm just going to fast forward it I'm going to go all the way through. Like, I went number one, and during my shitty ways, I got hit a lot. I rolled out of the ring. I did one of those staying outside of the ring a lot. There's number 28 comes out. Let's just say that, okay? Let's just say for shits and giggles too. Booker T's in it. He's in it, and we'll say Edge. Edge and Booker T are both are in there right now. They're the only two standing, okay? Booker T and Edge. Just to put out names. Number 28 comes out, and it's Steve Austin. And I'm like, well, shit. Steve Austin comes out, and Booker T and myself are standing next to each other. Steve Austin goes in the ring, and Steve Austin and Edge are kind of standing next to each other. Because at this point, Steve Austin doesn't give a shit about anyone anymore. He's all about himself. Steve Austin goes directly after me, starts beating the shit out of me, Stone Cold Stunner. Stunners Booker T. Booker T took the stunner all the way outside. Like, he took a stunner, and then he eliminated himself with that stunner. So it's Steve Austin, Edge, and myself now. He's beating me up. Number 29, Triple H. This is his return. He came in, and he's aiming right for Austin, because these two had history. So, thank God Triple H showed up. Faces Austin, beats the shit out of each other. Edge did his executioner on me, because he's like working on me now. Kurt Angle is the 30th man. Kurt Angle comes in. Steve Austin and Triple H, they go at it. Kurt Angle Olympic slams Edge to the outside. So now the final four is Triple H, Austin, Angle, and myself. A lot of history here. Me and Triple H, no history at all. But Steve Austin with Triple H, a lot of history. Triple H with Kurt Angle, a lot of history. Me and Kurt, history. Me and Steve, this history here. So we all go at it. Kurt Angle gets eliminated. So it's just Steve, Triple H, and myself. Now I'm just a bloody mess. Kurt Angle got eliminated by Steve Austin. Steve Austin stunners me. I turn around and get pedigreed. And then explosions happen, and it's Chris Jericho. he's actually here, and he actually saved my ass once from being eliminated, because Jericho knows that if I win, then he wins, because he knows that I'll take a fall for him, because that's how close me and Jericho are now. So Triple H and Steve go at it some more. They see Jericho around. Steve's trying to go after him, but he can't. He has to focus on Triple H as well, but Jericho's trying to help me out. Steve Austin stunners Triple H, but Triple H catches him off. Like, he holds his leg and, like, clotheslines him. I hit Triple H with the limbo. I hit him with the limbo. He went down on his face, got up. Like, as he went down, he, like, bounced up and hit Stone Cold. Stone Cold went towards the rope, and Jericho held onto the ropes, and Stone Cold got eliminated that way. Stone Cold destroyed Chris Jericho. Stunner after stunner after stunner, beat the shit out of him. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I was like, great, now what the hell is going to happen? So as I'm worried about that being stupid me, I'm almost lasting all 30 men here. Like a little like guy like myself lasting all those men. Turn around, Triple H pedigrees me, clotheslines me, I get eliminated. Triple H wins the Royal Rumble. The next pay-per-view is called No Way Out. And it's Jericho versus Austin in the main event for the Undisputed title, while Kurt took on Triple H in a co-main event. Jericho and Steve go at it. They go at it, they go at it, they go at it, they go at it, they go at it. And I was like, I shut up. And I had the mic, and I was like, I'm sick and tired of this. And they're still having a match, and I'm just like going on a rant here. Like, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm tired of all this shit happening to me. I'm tired of everything. Like, all I wanted to do was to be a part of WWF. That's all I wanted to do. And I can't, like, you are the problem here. And I'm pointing to Steve. And Steve's just looking at me as Jericho's just laying down in a puddle of blood. And Steve's just laughing. And I was like, so I called on the help of my old friends, the NWO. And then you hear new world order. And then here comes Hogan, Nash, and Hall. And Austin's like, what the hell? Not paying attention to Chris Jericho. Jericho rolls him up 1, 2, 3. Austin then gets pulverized by the NWO. Same thing happens to The Rock. The whole storyline with The Rock does happen. All that jazz. So WrestleMania shows up. And it's Austin and Hall. That stays. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. That stays. So, with Austin and Hall, Kevin Nash is on his corner, and so am I. I'm in Hall's corner as well. Austin goes at Hall, Austin goes at Hall, Hall goes at Austin. Austin gives Hall the greatest stunner of all time. Hall jumps up and, like, we all remember that stunner, right? Stunnered Hall, stunnered Nash, stunnered me, beat the shit out of me, beat the shit out of Nash, beat the shit out of Hall, pins Hall, 1, 2, 3. And so The Rock versus Hulk Hogan happens, and they're going at it. The Rock beats Hulk Hogan, just like it happened to. Hulk Hogan shakes his hand. Hall and Nash come out saying, what the hell are you doing, shaking his hand. I come out too, and I'm like, guys, we need to, like, because it's just us three now, like, we need to work together. Like, just relax here, it's fine. Like, you're just showing good sportsmanship and all that shit. And then Hall and Nash just go ape shit on Hogan. And they start beating me up. But The Rock comes in, helps out Hogan. And then he looks at me. And he, like, pats me on the face. And he just left. And I guess that's all I really needed, was that pat saying, you know what, you've been through a lot here. And The Rock just was like, it's like, I understand where you're coming from. Because you started out with, like, getting the shit can. But it's like, I guess it's the classic way of me paying my dues. So, you know, after all that happened with everything, like, The Rock goes off, it was the instant classic and all that stuff. I become, like, you know, I went through the Cruiserweight division, helped them out. You know, like, just being a body in there. Then I got into the Intercontinental stage of it, where I was facing, you know, the likes of RVD and Eddie Guerrero and all those great competitors. And then I got into the hardcore scene because, you know, at that time I wasn't afraid to bleed and all that stuff. So pretty much my story in this era, this particular era, because it makes sense to not ruin history too much, was that I was a body that people liked. So if you will, like a pretty good promo, like pretty good talker. I was like, if you will, that time, I was like an Edge, like or an Eddie Guerrero type, where it's like, he's there, he looks pretty good, he could be something someday, and that was the era I was in. So I was working my way up to where I needed to be, and eventually, took me a little while, but you have to start somewhere. And for the fact that I know I made history by being part of history, the fans did catch on. You know, I became face, I became heel, I became face. I became a name brand for myself, you know, as the regular wrestler named Brian Nelson from Massachusetts. People started respecting that. I was only 5'8", same height as Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was rocking it. You know, at that time, it was our size guys that were rocking it. It wasn't really like, because we were heading into the era where, you know, Eddie Guerrero was becoming big and RVD was coming big, and these smaller guys now were starting to really take over. So that's what pretty much happened to me, and that was my year, or I should say July to April. That was my very first year. And it's not anything glorious or anything like that. It was just one dude who started from nothing, and he's saying that no matter what you do, even though you're starting at nothing, it all leads to something. You just have to keep at it. And that's classic me, where it's like, no matter how many times you get pushed down, no matter how many times you get beat up, it's what you have to do. You just have to pay your dues, because eventually you'll get there. And I lived by that motto. And that's the era for me. I chose 2001 because that's one of my favorite timelines, was NWO taking over, or WWF versus WCW stuff. That was great stuff, and I would have loved to be part of that. But at the time, in real life, I was only 10 years old. But that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. 32 minutes. There's no really much video on this. I just have a camera pointed to a black thing, because, I mean, you don't really need to see my face talking about this stuff. But that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything that you would change about it, let me know. Maybe a little bit more details, but I figured any more details would be longer than 30 minutes, which it already is right now. But thank you. That's my punishment 4 of 5. And catch you next time. Later.